Hi everyone, welcome back. Thanks for joining us today. We've got a brand new story to share with you. So let's begin. My name is Victor, and I'm going to tell you a story. I didn't realize how toxic my marriage truly was until the day my wife vanished. Sent me a text telling me to take care of the kids. When I tried to call her back, she didn't pick up. I'm sure you're wondering how things got to this point. Well, that's exactly what I'm going to walk you through today. I want to take you back and tell you the story from the beginning, all the way to the moment when I realized this marriage was beyond saving. The first time I met my wife, Stacy, was at a church event. It was actually my first time stepping foot into that church. I wasn't even a regular churchgoer back then. It was more of a spur-of-the-moment decision. A friend of mine invited me, and I figured I'd give it a shot. But as soon as I walked in, I noticed her. Stacy was one of the organizers for the event. I was impressed by how she moved through the crowd, coordinating everything and making sure everything was working right. Honestly, I thought it was kind of admirable. So once the event wrapped up, I made my way over to her to say good job. I told her I thought she did a great job organizing everything, and that was it. But for some reason, we ended up talking a bit longer than I expected. But when we said our goodbyes, I walked away with her number. I wasn't sure if she'd actually want to hear from me again, but I figured I'd try anyway. Now here's the thing, I didn't actually call her right away. Days went by, then weeks. I don't know why I didn't make the move sooner. But one Sunday, a few months later, I walked into the church again, and there she was. And let me tell you, seeing her there after all that time felt like a sign. I figured I'd take a plunge. After the service, I called her. I didn't really have a game plan or anything. I just asked if she'd like to grab a coffee sometime. I didn't know what to expect, but she said yes. And from that moment on, things just sort of clicked between us. We started hanging out more and talking regularly. Over time, we became a couple. The chemistry was undeniable. We had our differences, sure, but the foundation felt solid. Eventually, it felt like the right thing to do, so we got married. Looking back, I think a lot of it was just the two of us figuring things out together. It was simple in the beginning. I didn't know then how complicated things would get, but at the time, it all seemed easy. I guess that's how most marriages start, right? You don't always see the red flags at first. You don't think about the bumps down the road. You just take each day as it comes, trusting that it's going to be all right. Back when Stacy and I were dating, one thing she always brought up was how much she wanted to be a stay-at-home mom. She made it sound noble, and I respected that. So, I told her, if that's your thing, then I'll work to make it happen. I didn't mind carrying the financial weight as long as the home was steady and our kids were loved and cared for. When we got married, I stuck to that promise. I worked hard, long hours, and sometimes weekends. I made sure there was food on the table, bills were paid, and Stacy didn't have to stress about money for the basic things. The early days of our marriage weren't perfect, but I was doing my best to provide everything she needed, and I truly believed she appreciated it. Then, the family started growing. One child turned into 2, then 3, and eventually 5. And with every child came more responsibilities. Our expenses didn't just grow, they multiplied. At first, we tried to keep up like nothing had changed. But that was unrealistic. I explained to Stacy that we needed to adjust our lifestyle. We couldn't keep spending the way we used to. I told her we'd need to cut back, and only by what was absolutely necessary for the home. It wasn't an easy conversation, but I thought she understood. After all, this was about making sure our children had what they needed. Looking back now, I think the cracks in our marriage started showing when our lifestyle had to adjust after the kids came. I mean, we didn't become poor or anything. But with 5 children, it was only natural that we had to prioritize. She began acting like the life we were living wasn't good enough for her anymore. Every little thing became a comparison to someone else's life. One day, she started talking about how her friends were all signing up for a gym membership. I told her we could take walks around the block if she wanted to exercise, but she rolled her eyes and said it wasn't the same. Not long after, she said she wanted a new Chanel purse because the neighbor had just bought one. I reminded her that purses don't carry happiness, and ours still worked just fine. She didn't like that. Then it was a gold necklace, apparently. Her friend's husband had surprised her friend with one, and now she felt left out. I tried to tell her calmly, you don't need to compete with anyone. What we have is enough if we focus on what matters. But it was like I wasn't speaking her language anymore. No matter how gentle I was, she took my words as an attack. But that was never my intention. I just wanted us to live within our means, save for the kids' future, and be grateful for what we had. I wasn't saying she couldn't enjoy nice things. I just wanted her to understand timing and priorities. But Stacy didn't want to hear it. And from there, her attitude kept shifting, little by little. It became clear that she wasn't just unhappy with our situation, she was embarrassed by it. And that's when things really started to turn. So one afternoon, we were in the kitchen. I was working on my laptop while Stacy leaned against the counter, scrolling through her phone. She looked up and said, almost offhandedly, there's a reunion coming up next month. I want to go. At first, I didn't think much of it. I figured maybe it was something local. Then she added, I'll need to go shopping before then. That's when I raised my head. I asked her, what about the clothes you bought just 2 months ago for Thanksgiving and Christmas? You haven't even worn some of them more than once. She didn't even hesitate. She just said, those ones have already been worn. Like wearing something more than once automatically makes it unusable. I remember staring at her, trying to make sense of what I was hearing. I told her straight, I didn't plan for new clothing expenses this month. We're trying to stay within budget. It's not that I don't want you to look good, but we have 5 kids to think about. She didn't argue. She just nodded and went quiet. I took that silence as understanding. I genuinely thought we were on the same page. So I moved on. Then, a week before the reunion, she brought up again, but this time with a twist. We were both in the living room when she casually mentioned that the reunion is in Hawaii. I was stunned. I looked at her and said, Stacy, I don't support this. It's too far, too expensive, and honestly, it doesn't make sense to put that kind of pressure on our finances just for a reunion. Again, she didn't argue or get upset. Just another silent nod. Again, I assumed she respected my stance and understood. I didn't realize she was making plans behind my back the entire time. I had no idea what was coming. 2 days before the reunion, I was sitting at my desk in the office, handling some reports, when my phone buzzed. I remember picking it up. It read, we are in Hawaii. Take care of the kids. That was it. My brain couldn't process what I had just read. Hawaii? I called her immediately. No answer. I called again. And again. Nothing. I called the school next. I asked if anyone had come to pick up our children. I was told nobody has come for them. I didn't wait another second. I grabbed my keys and rushed out of the office without even telling anyone. I drove like a man possessed. I just kept thinking, what kind of mother abandons her kids like this? When I got to the school, I saw my kids standing in the parking lot, looking completely lost. They didn't know what was going on, and I didn't have the words to explain it to them. I got them into the car and drove them home. That night, after putting the kids to bed, I sat down to trace what had really happened. I opened up our joint account online, and what I saw made my stomach twist. The withdrawals told a story I never thought I'd be reading. There were multiple charges: designer clothing stores, flight bookings, hotel reservations, and spa treatments. All of it pointed to one truth. She had used our family's money to fund her personal vacation. She took what we had set aside for groceries, bills, and basic needs and burned it on luxury and ego. I didn't stop there. I remembered the mutual fund account we had opened years ago, the one specifically meant for the kids' college tuition. I hadn't checked it in a while because I trusted we were on the same page about its purpose. But that night, I logged into it. Stacy had been silently siphoning off the interest the fund had been generating, month after month. She never told me. She just kept withdrawing small amounts, probably thinking I wouldn't notice. And to be honest, I hadn't until now. This was money meant to give our children a better future, and she was spending it like loose change on herself. At that moment, I froze the joint account. I couldn't take any more risks. I had to protect what was left. I was deeply hurt. My wife has slowly and deliberately eroded the trust and stability of our home. The next day, the first thing I did was call my lawyer. I wasn't even sure what steps to take at first, but I knew I had to protect the kids. I explained everything and sent him every proof I could gather. We filed for emergency custody immediately while she was still in Hawaii. There's no way I could sit back and let her come home and pretend like nothing happened. That whole week she was gone, I was in survival mode. By the time she came back, I had already made my decision. The marriage was over. I didn't want to live another day wondering what financial bombshell would drop next or which new trend she would chase while I kept sacrificing everything. I realized she had made her plans without me, and that told me everything I needed to know. So I made mine. I wasn't going to let this go on any longer. The day Stacy returned from Hawaii, she walked straight to the house and realized she couldn't get in. I had changed the locks. I was at work when she called. My phone lit up, and as soon as I saw her name, I knew it wasn't going to be a calm conversation. I picked up, and right away, she was yelling. She was furious that I had frozen the account while she was still in Hawaii. She said I left her stranded, like I had planned to sabotage her trip. She called me controlling and accused me of being manipulative and abusive with money. According to her, I had no right to cut her off financially. I let her rant for a while, but when I finally spoke, I was clear and direct. I told her she no longer had custody of the kids. I'd already filed for emergency custody while she was away, and since she was back, I said my lawyer would be sending her the divorce papers soon. The moment she heard the word divorce, she completely lost control. Her voice went up another level. She started shouting names, calling me selfish, heartless, and every insult she could think of. But I stayed calm. I wasn't going to argue with her. That evening, when I got home, things got even worse. She was outside the house, waiting. The moment I stepped out of my car, she came at me in front of the neighbors. She was yelling loud enough, pointing fingers, demanding explanations, and playing the victim like I had somehow wronged her. I asked her to leave peacefully, but she refused. She kept raising her voice, drawing more and more attention, trying to make me look like the bad guy. I didn't want to escalate things, but I couldn't let the chaos continue either. I called the police. When they arrived, I calmly explained the situation. They listened to both sides, but based on everything, they told her she had to leave the premises. She didn't go quietly, of course, still shouting, still blaming me, but eventually, they escorted her away. The kids were inside. They didn't need to see their mother screaming in the driveway or the police taking her away. After everything that happened, the first thing on my mind was the kids. I didn't want them caught in the middle of all this chaos. They had already seen enough when their mother vanished to Hawaii. So I made the call to place them under the care of someone I trust deeply while the storm raged on between me and Stacy. That decision gave me space to face what I knew was coming, a full-blown legal war. Stacy wasn't going to back down. As soon as she realized I wasn't just going to let her walk back into our lives like nothing happened, she went all out. She took out loans just to fight me in court. The legal process was brutal. Long days, endless paperwork, court hearings, back and forth with lawyers. It drained me mentally, physically, and emotionally. But I held on. When the dust settled, Stacy had lost custody. She was drowning in legal debt from all the loans she took to come after me. And even with all that loss staring her in the face, she still couldn't see the truth. She still paints herself as the victim in all this. Still goes around telling people I left her stranded, that I froze our joint account to punish her, that I'm the one who wrecked our family. Not once did she apologize. Not once did she sit down and reflect on how her choices affected not just me, but our kids, too. But I see it clearly now. This didn't just start in Hawaii. That trip was just the final straw. The signs were always there. Stacy had always been reckless with money, always chasing after things she didn't need, just to keep up with someone else. I used to tell myself she would grow out of it, that maybe if I worked harder, loved her more, gave her time, she'd understand what really mattered. Family, stability, the future of our children. But instead, she kept spending like there were no consequences. And when she dipped into the emergency funds, I knew this marriage had run its course. Now that it's over, I can finally breathe. I know that every cent I make now is going where it should, without the weight of someone who only ever saw our home as a place to take, not to build. You've heard everything I've been through. I want to leave you with these important lessons I've learned. These are lessons paid for in pain. So please, take them seriously. The first lesson is this: never ignore consistent signs of selfish behavior, even if it comes from someone you love. My wife Stacy wanted things just because other people had them, refusing to see the reality of our financial limits, spending without asking, and deciding without including me. If I had faced it early, if I had called it what it was instead of excusing it, maybe things would have turned out differently. Don't ignore the red flags. They won't go away just because you pretend not to see them. The second lesson is this: protect your children's future, even if it means making difficult, painful decisions. Filing for emergency custody while still married to their mother was gut-wrenching. Changing the locks felt like a betrayal at first, like I was doing something wrong. But my kids didn't deserve a mother who would drop everything for a reunion in Hawaii and forget they even existed. So I made the hard choice. And if you ever find yourself in a situation where someone's decisions are threatening your well-being, you have to act, even if it breaks your heart. And finally, the third lesson: love isn't enough when respect and responsibility are missing. Walk away when it starts hurting more than helping. I love my wife, but love is not a magic fix. Love without responsibility turns into damage. Not once did she stop to ask how her choices were affecting me or the kids. So let me ask you, if you were in my shoes, what would you have done? Would you have waited for her to come back and explain herself? Would you have given her another chance? Or would you have done exactly what I did? Protect your kids and choose peace? If this story hit home for you, please like the video, share it with someone who needs to hear this, and don't forget to subscribe for more real-life stories like this one. You never know who might need this message today.